The meeting on September 25, 2019 had an air of unease from the start. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, newly elected and eager to secure American support, stood side by side with then-President Donald Trump in the White House. The photo opportunity was meant to project a united front. Instead, it became a stark reminder of the political storm brewing around them. Just days earlier, news had broken of a July 2019 phone call between the two leaders. The content of that call, later revealed in a whistleblower complaint, would become the heart of Trump's first impeachment inquiry. Trump, in that fateful conversation, had pressed Zelenskyy to investigate his political rival Joe Biden and his son Hunter regarding their dealings in Ukraine. This quid pro quo, linking American military aid to Ukraine with investigations that could benefit Trump politically, sent shockwaves through Washington and beyond. The scandal cast a long shadow over the September meeting, making any substantive discussion about Ukraine's security and future difficult. Despite the tension, Zelenskyy used the opportunity to appeal for continued US support, emphasizing the shared values and interests between the two countries. He knew that Ukraine, facing Russian aggression in its eastern Donbas region, relied heavily on American military and financial assistance. However, the shadow of the impeachment inquiry loomed large, raising questions about the future of US-Ukraine relations under the Trump administration. Zelenskyy, a former comedian with no prior political experience, had swept to power in Ukraine on a wave of popular support. His promises of reform and a tough stance against Russian aggression resonated with a country weary of war and corruption. However, navigating the complex geopolitical realities of leading a nation caught in the crosshairs of a US-Russia rivalry would prove to be a daunting task. The 2019 White House meeting, despite its controversies, highlighted the crucial importance of US support for Ukraine. American military aid, particularly in the form of Javelin anti-tank missiles, proved vital in bolstering Ukraine's defenses against Russian-backed separatists. Furthermore, US financial assistance helped to stabilize the Ukrainian economy, which had been battered by conflict and instability. Beyond material support, Ukraine also sought political backing from the United States, a powerful counterweight to Russia's influence on the world stage. Zelenskyy, in his public statements, emphasized the need for continued American leadership in upholding international law and deterring further Russian aggression. He presented Ukraine as a bulwark of democracy facing down an authoritarian aggressor, a narrative that resonated with some in Washington. However, the impeachment inquiry and Trump's own transactional approach to foreign policy created uncertainty about the reliability of American support. The episode exposed the fragility of Ukraine's position, reliant on the whims of a US president with seemingly little regard for democratic norms or the country's long-term security. Fast forward to 2025, the unthinkable has happened. Donald Trump, defying polls and pundits, has secured a second term as President of the United States. The world, still grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic aftershocks, now faces the prospect of a resurgent and emboldened Trump on the world stage. For Ukraine, the news of Trump's re-election is met with a mixture of trepidation and cautious hope. The past 4 years have been a roller coaster ride. While Trump maintained a steady flow of military aid, he also publicly questioned Zelenskyy's leadership, echoing Kremlin talking points that sowed doubt about the Ukrainian government's legitimacy. Zelenskyy, his popularity battered by the ongoing war and accusations of corruption within his own government, finds himself in a precarious position. He desperately needs continued US support to counter Russian aggression and prop up Ukraine's fragile economy. However, securing that support means navigating the unpredictable currents of Trump's foreign policy, one often driven by personal grudges and a disdain for traditional alliances. On February the 28th, 2025, Zelenskyy once again finds himself in Washington, this time for a high-stakes meeting with President Trump. The atmosphere is thick with tension, a stark contrast to the outward displays of camaraderie during their first encounter. The world watches closely, knowing that the outcome of this meeting could have far-reaching consequences for the future of Ukraine and the balance of power in Eastern Europe. The meeting is not a complete surprise. Back channels have been buzzing for weeks, hinting at a potential deal in the works. Sources suggest that the Trump administration, eager to bolster its America First agenda, is particularly interested in securing access to Ukraine's vast natural resources. Ukraine, for its part, is desperate for any lifeline that will help it weather the ongoing storm. Details of the preliminary agreement are scant, but leaks suggest that the US is pushing for preferential access to Ukrainian oil, gas, rare earth metals, and other critical minerals. In exchange, the Trump administration is dangling the promise of future aid, potentially through a jointly managed reconstruction investment fund. However, critics argue that the deal lacks concrete security guarantees for Ukraine, essentially leaving the country vulnerable to future Russian aggression. Zelenskyy faces an impossible dilemma. The proposed deal with Trump offers a much-needed economic lifeline and a glimmer of hope for post-war reconstruction. However, it comes at a steep price, acceding to Trump's demands for Ukrainian resources and potentially jeopardizing crucial relationships with European allies who view the deal with skepticism. Adding to the pressure is the Trump administration's stance on Ukrainian internal politics. Trump, echoing Russian propaganda, has repeatedly questioned the legitimacy of Zelenskyy's government and called for early presidential elections in Ukraine. This rhetoric has emboldened pro-Russian factions within Ukraine and raised fears that Trump might be willing to sacrifice Zelenskyy to secure a deal with Putin. Zelenskyy knows that early elections, held under the shadow of war and amidst deep societal divisions, could plunge Ukraine further into chaos. Yet, defying Trump carries its own risks. The US president, known for his vindictive streak, could easily withhold vital aid or, worse, strike a deal with Putin that leaves Ukraine out in the cold.